Welcome to our webinar, Achieving Optimal Health and Achieving Your Optimal Health. And we started back early in June, and we have been, our health team has been offering powerful guidance in helping participants achieve their optimal health. And we're nearing the 12th presentation at this point. In order to participate, what you want to do is go to LasVegasAreaTrails.com, click on Health Education, and here you can see the registration button, and you then register for the webinar. And you can also see the lineup of webinars. You can see webinars that have been delivered and webinars that are upcoming. Leading Yourself on Your Personal Health Journey is tonight's webinar with Annie and Emprima-Martin. And you can click on the link for each webinar and it goes to a page. The reason that's important is that following this webinar, see this little note here, webinar replay video will be inserted here following the webinar. This is where you're going to see the webinar replay video for tonight's webinar, and it'll be up within about 24 hours. And then you can also see we'll have some notes, webinar slides following this webinar. So going back here to health education, if you want to look at any of the other webinars, here's Gus's amazing webinar last week on fascia and what role it plays in your physical health. And here's his webinar video. You click on this, and if you missed it, you get a chance to see that entire webinar. And believe me, when you look at the amazing presentation here, it was very enlightening. And as an athlete and trail runner, I can say that it has influenced what, my approach to my running. And so I thank you, Gus, for that. And for tonight, Annie is presenting on leading yourself on your personal health journey. And I've been to Annie's office and had a session with her. I've got to say, she is an amazing person, helping you to dive into that subconscious area of your mind where a lot of our behaviors are generated. And so tonight, Annie's going to help us to know how we can lead ourselves, because ultimately, we think about leadership in terms of leading others, but the person that is the most important to lead before we can lead anyone else is leading ourselves. And so a little bit about Annie. She's a spiritual empowerment facilitator and QHHT practitioner, quantum healing hypnosis technique. So are you going to hypnotize all of us here on the webinar, Annie?
That'll be another webinar later in the year.
Okay, I'm going to close my eyes just in case. Okay, anyway, she coaches spiritually guided startups. Here's something above that I skipped over, but yeah, startup investor and service disabled veteran. She has quite a service to veterans also. And so Annie really lives what she preaches here. And and I believe one of your slides is showing you and Marianne Williamson, one of the Democratic candidates, and another one shows you with the governor of Nevada, and so that leads me to believe that you also have a political active component to what you do. So Annie's a very fascinating person, and looking
It comes
forward.
with sitting on the governor's, I sit on one of the governor's committees, so it sort
Okay,
of comes.
okay, so we might get our political questions ready too. So in this webinar, you're going to learn different ways to lead your body in self-healing, ways to connect with the subconscious higher self soul's guidance, the importance of getting out of your own way so miracles can manifest, simple ways to empower our whole mind, body, and soul, and the benefits we expect to experience tonight are to experience dramatic positive shifts, overcome hidden barriers to your goals, and achieve greater ability to set an intention and successfully lead yourself to follow through. So, Annie, I want to turn it over to you now. And if I missed something important in the introduction, let me know. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'll pull up your PowerPoint, and here we go.
Here we go. So like David mentioned, one of the things that I realized through being on a deployment and being in the military and being a parent is that we very often lead the people around us and then we forget about ourselves. And it doesn't matter where on the spectrum you are, whether you're starting in the military or very high up in the ranks, or you're starting as a parent, or you've moved on generations, or you have subordinates under you at work. We have a tendency to forget what we do, where we came from, and where we're going. So that's really what I want to look at today, is the personal health journey, which is really the journey. It's part of the journey, the story that we have for our purpose here. So we go to the next slide. As David mentioned, I want to look at different ways to lead your body in self-healing, and it's not going to be obvious points, but through the topics and conversations, we will reach those points. Different ways to connect with your subconscious, your higher self, your soul. However, whatever religious or spiritual belief you have, that's really what we're looking at. The importance of getting out of your own way. That is a huge piece in a spiritual empowerment coach. Getting out of your own way is sometimes the biggest obstacle that we prevent ourselves from receiving the gifts, the blessings, the manifestations that we're really hoping for and wishing for and praying for, but we're the reason we're not getting it very often. And then simple ways. So move to the next slide. So what we're looking at right here is on the left, on my side, on the left is the unilome for my logo, the one. It's a unilome, which is a Buddhist symbol, and it's the path to enlightenment. So anyone who's not familiar with that, it goes in phases. So if we look at phase one, that's the spiral. When we hear people, oh, we're spiraling out of control, that's sort of what it refers to, is people who just continue going around in circles and not leaving that path. And then the second phase of a unilome is the wandering. The wandering we do as we come out and we have awareness of what we're doing and how we want to move forward. We're still going to have a lot of lessons in front of us, and we're still going to have a lot of learning to do. And then as we phase out of that wandering, phase three is when you have clarity on your path and you're moving forward. It doesn't mean that the chaos around you has subsided or has gone away. Perhaps it has, but it's really about having focus on where you're going. And because of that, the path becomes straight. It's very guided and it's very smooth in terms of chaos. You don't have that chaos anymore. You let go of it. And then 4 is faith. So when we look at faith in whatever it is we believe, if we believe that we're going to grow our company, or faith in a religious system or spiritual system, faith is what we are moving toward. And it's our guiding light, like sort of like a lighthouse. It's it is what's shining the way for us to get to where we're going, whatever that may be for us. And then, of course, I love this is a perfect visualization of the messy middle. That is how life works. And so,
quick question here. As I look
yeah.
at those 4 stages, I think of the stages of unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. And it almost seems like there's a connection there between those 4 stages of behavioral change. But I just had to point that out.
And the beautiful thing is we can think we're in stage 3 and then something happens in our life and it propels us back to 1. And that's life. Right? So next slide. So I'm looking at, in what I do as a spiritual empowerment coach, of course, the other pillars, spiritual is really the strongest, that's the lead dancer in everything I do. But of course, all the other pillars are affected because you can't move forward on any journey without recognizing all of the facets involved. So what I did was I put down some of the things that come up in session. So as a spiritual empowerment coach, I'm very intuitive and information comes to me while I'm meeting with my clients. And it doesn't matter where on the religious or spiritual spectrum my clients fall. I have everyone from extremely religious to atheist and everything in the middle. Any session I have, intuitively, these are very common words that pop up. The journey. Everyone has a mission. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has some reason for being here. And if they're just living a digging potatoes life, they probably wouldn't come across me anyway. So these words are really things that pop up most commonly. And The Alchemist, if you've read The Alchemist, it's a great book. The more times you read it, if it connects with you the first time, it's going to connect with you twice as much on the second go round. It's a really powerful book for someone that's looking to find their personal legend in life. So I do want to point out things very simple like rest and vacation pop up a lot. And I don't know if anyone has really thought about it, but if we think about from the biblical side of Christianity, we talk, or even from previous to Christianity, we talk about on the 7th day. On the 7th day, God rested. And we don't really give that as much credit as it deserves because you cannot refuel your body if you are constantly busy, busy, busy. That rest period, whether it's used for vacation or meditation, it is a rejuvenation period, and it's necessary, especially for those on a spiritual path, to give your body that time to catch up to where your mind and your soul have taken it. So, move to the next one. So the power of the mind. This is from I have a little bit of a psychology background, and the mind fascinates me. Neuroanatomy fascinates me. We can do so much simply by believing that it exists. The power of the mind is really just we can create any rule we want. And this is a game of life. And so anyone who's following me on Instagram, I'm currently running the game called Life. I take quotes out of books that really interest me, and I post them in how they relate to what I do for work. And the game called Life is it's a little tiny, quick read book, very funny. But it really changes the way we see life and how we allow our rules to define us. So if you have a chance to take a look at that book. KDT is the acronym that I have here for language and internal dialogue. How we talk to ourselves, how we treat ourselves with internal conversation really dictates the outcome. And so no matter how spiritual someone may be, if the language is defeating, it's not going to allow the other facets to come in. And KDT is Cartman Drama Triangle. And that's really common among addicts and high drama psychological side of behavior where there's a rescuer, there's a perpetrator, and there's a victim at the starting point. And at any time, those characters can shift roles. So you have a victim, the rescuer comes in to feel good about being the rescuer, the victim then becomes the perpetrator, and it becomes this whole drama triangle. The opposite is with the empowerment dynamic. And the empowerment dynamic is where you have a creator, you have a coach, and you have a challenger. And the creator owns the power to choose and to respond and focuses on the outcome. And then you have the coach, which would be a role like I would have, that would come in to support it. How are you going to do that? Yes, you can do it. How are you going to do that? And then the challenger, it doesn't matter if they're consciously defeating the situation or consciously supporting the situation. They challenge the situation to allow for those lessons to occur. And so when we look at how we believe, very often we'll say statements like, I can't do that. And then the coach would come in and say, yet. You may not be able to have the $1 million company right now, but that doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. And so how we use our language really affects the outcome, right? So there's a lot of things we can do to make simple adjustments to help manifest outcomes. I have integrity and truth here. And this is something important that I want to emphasize, because when we lie to the universe, and if anyone has listened to previous webinars where we have Holly talking about, I think she talked about the allergy, she had someone who had an allergy, and because they lied about their allergy, they then manifested the allergy. They put the order into the mind, and the mind said, okay, body, here's the order, we're going to fulfill it. And the soul says, okay, if that's what they want, the body has free will, let's do this. And the more I examine allergies from the spiritual side with the subconscious, like I had a client maybe 4 days ago, when she was 2 years old, she got scratched by her grandmother's cat. And to protect her own body, she developed an allergy from cats so that she would never be scratched again.
Oh boy.
Put the order in, body says, okay, my mind approves it, the body says, okay, and then fulfills it, right? So every time we say something that's a lie, we can then manifest that lie. So we have to be very careful how we speak, and that we speak with integrity and truth. Even if we have to adjust the language, the more integrity we have from the spiritual perspective, the greater our gifts will become. And then if anyone has ever read Man's Search for Meaning, that's a fabulous book on resilience. And Dr. Frankl talks about his time in the World War II concentration camps, and how he saw people who were committing suicide by letting go, and those who were not, and what they did differently. It's a fantastic book. Well, let's go to the next slide.
Okay. Just a quick thought, though, is what you're saying is that by changing our language, we can actually lead ourselves in a direction we want to go by languaging that direction, instead of, oh, I don't think I can do this, or this is difficult, or people like me are not able to do this. I just haven't done this yet.
Here's an example of mental. So,
okay.
For instance, say you have, I did, this is a great example, this is a true, I have VA rating on my wrists.
Okay.
My wrists were really hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped and I had a conversation with my wrist, and I'm talking to my wrist, I tapped into my wrist, right? They're all just departments of our body. We have headquarters up here, and these are all departments within the company, right? So I talked to the executive of the wrist department, and I said, hey, I don't want to feel this pain anymore. Can you do something about it? Process the pain through my body and release it and reduce it, because I have to type. And so my body responded like, yeah, thanks for recognizing that we're here. We're just like when you have subordinates at work, they get really excited when you ask their opinion. My wrists were very excited, and they subsided the pain in my wrist, and I can move them around, and they're not clicking anymore.
Interesting.
But language, right? Language, the understanding of how powerful this is. I went to do something at the VA hospital, and they asked me about my wrist, and I'm like, yes, my wrists have been really hurting, which was not true because I'd asked them to subside. And sure enough, within a few hours, my wrist started aching again. And I'm like, no, the order didn't change. But they're like, but you said it, Annie. So when you tell your body to do something, it'll respond in kind. When you decide that you don't want to live anymore, your organs will start shutting down.
Wow.
May make 10 to 20 years for it to fulfill that order, but you place the order.
You know, it's a bit interesting that, you know, being a distance runner, I deal with, my history has been dealing with one injury and then I'm okay for a while, then another injury. And so I take, you know, now and then I'll run, I'll take Advil.
Yeah.
Okay. I began to realize that, hey, that's not the healthiest thing to do. And so I told myself that I can send a message to like a knee that is hurting, and I can put a shield around that knee, and that my body has the ability to end that pain and to heal myself. And I've actually experienced that that can be powerful medicine. It's like the medicine of the mind. And
Yeah.
so, I love what you're saying.
And think of all of the studies. We have many studies. My ex-husband, when he was in the first part of his master's degree for nursing, one of the classes was about meditation and prayer to heal cancer and other heavy diseases, right? And what we know is people do heal themselves without any chemo or radiation
Yes.
by meditating. What they've done, and they've shown that the studies show, the cancer patients that envision cancer being something that's undefeatable
Mm-hmm.
can't reduce the cancer cells, but the people that go in and meditate and see the cancer cells as something small that can be zapped away or swept away, or something where it's feasible in their mental visualization, the cancer subsides.
So it's not just a case of, oh, this person just happened to get lucky, and this other person happened to go down with the cancer. It's like we can intentionally influence the course of disease in our lives with our mind.
Yes,
That's powerful.
absolutely. And there are studies to support it. So there's science that supports the metaphysical side of this healing.
That is powerful.
It's
Thank
very
you.
powerful. So emotions are fantastic things to talk about. Fabulous topics. I want to focus on the first one under trapped emotions, and that's samprapti. If you want to learn more about samprapti, look up Ayurveda, and there's a lot of books on it. This is healing that's done in other parts of the world, and from a very generalized perspective, this is the story of disease, the 6 steps of disease. So how can anger manifest into cancer? And this is how it tells the story. So say you have an accumulation of something, and then it gets provoked, and then it spreads, and then it becomes localized, and then it's manifested, and then it's causing destruction. So when I look at people that are having self-induced disease, very often it goes back to a traumatic event. So how do we have, for instance, arthritis in the knees? Now, I have arthritis from the Army, and I get it. Not everything can be mentally removed. Sometimes we need Western medicine to support us. But very often in the work I do, arthritis in the knees is a resistance of moving forward.
Wow.
Very often when we have pain in various parts of the body, it relates to an emotion. And so the body, no matter how many times, every time you've had trauma, the body keeps score. And I've talked about this in other, I know, in-person sessions. when we have a traumatic event and we don't deal with it and we throw it in our shadow bag, and that's a Carl Jung reference, where something happens, we throw it in our bag. Something emotionally devastating, we throw it in our bag. Something causes us anger, we throw it in our bag. If you notice, people who have anger, and anger can be masked as depression and vice versa, there tends to be weight gain with these emotions because emotions carry weight.
Mm.
And so, or you'll see people hunch over. Like they physically are hunching over to the invisible weight of emotions.
Mm.
And so when you go back and you look at the cause and you release the cause, you then release all of the symptoms that were created from that cause. So from quantum healing, we want to go back to what the cause is. And very often it's something that was like, oh, when they were 3 years old, or when they were 2 years old, or when they were 5 years old. And you think, how could a 2-year-old carry this much trauma? And they do. A 2-year-old is wise enough to know that if the cat scratches them, to create the allergy so that a cat will never scratch them again.
Mm.
We don't give young children enough recognition for their wisdom at their age. And so there's a process called emotion code. I don't do emotion code, but I'm very familiar with emotion code. My method is slightly different because it's intuitive, where I will hear, or I'll see an image in my mind to touch someone in a certain place on their body, and I'm not aware of what's happening, but whatever it is releasing that emotion from that zone. But to understand emotion code, it's not a bad read. It's a pretty quick read. This is the cover of the book. It's got some really interesting concepts in it, and it tells the story of how this came to be. And I want to focus on manifesting outcomes. Joy and fear, right? They're two different emotions, but joy resonates really, really high, and fear resonates really, really low. So when you vibrate in joy and then wish for something to be manifested, you're more likely to get it because it's a higher vibration. When you manifest at a low vibration, you're very likely to get a low vibration result. So like if we think about those that start riding a motorcycle, you're nervous to be on the motorcycle, and you're going to ride, and you get target fixated on something on the road. Like stay away from that debris in the road, stay away from the debris in the road, stay away from the debris in the road. What do? We veer toward the thing in the road. That's what fear creates, is I'm afraid of this. And by saying I'm afraid of this, what we've done is put an order for this into our mind that sends it to our body, that sends the universe permission to bring that to us. So that's why if you watch The Secret or you read the book The Secret, it's when you're asking for money, you don't wish to not be in debt, because all you're doing is asking for the debt with a word in front of it. You change your language to have abundance, or to have something of a high vibration word that resonates at the same frequency, the megahertz, as joy. And so down here, these are two of the things that I've manifested. I have a $7,000 leather sectional that got delivered to my house. It didn't cost me a penny, and it is my pride and joy. If anyone has been in my house, this is my $7,000 couch. So brand new, when it arrived, it was stiff. Not a single wrinkle in it. And then to the right of that is a crystal that I had wished for at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. Long story on why it was 2 a.m. on a Saturday. By 6 p.m. on Sunday, it was in my hand, and it came from a lake in Afghanistan. And anyone that was in the military knows that that's contraband. So contraband made it over by plane and delivered to my house in a day and a half later. And the irony for this is the universe laughing, because when I was deployed, we couldn't get a tire from Taji, from Kuwait City to Taji, which is like 6 hours by ground. We couldn't get it there in less than 4 days, and I got a crystal in a day and a half.
Wow.
The universe is like, I don't care what you order, just order it from the right place in your mind, right? So both of those wishes I made when I was in a joyous state. very, very high frequency joyous state. And they both came to me fairly quickly. One was 10 days and one was a day and a half. So move to the next one.
Okay, and just a quick comment. I think that before the end of this time today, let's ask each person that's here what is the highest on their wish list. And
Ooh.
maybe you can help us to frame the request. So just a thought. Okay, let's move ahead.
Okay, social. Social we know is very important. We know social connections, and I'm going to show you in a short moment why social connections are so important to us, why tribes are important, why safety nets are important, trust, safety, those are big words in my world. Touch, feeling, hugging, why those things are important. I'm going to show a visual in a moment. And I want to touch on a fun fact. I don't know if anybody is familiar with energy frequency, but the energy frequency of a healthy body in the daytime is about 62 to 72 megahertz. Near death is 24 to 26 megahertz, roughly. Joy is up here at 540. Anger is at 150, and shame is at 20. So let me give that number again. Near death is 24 to 26. Shame is 20. That's 4 to 6 megahertz lower than near death.
Oh my gosh.
That's how much shame weighs on the body, more than near death. So we're gonna move forward on connections, and we're gonna go to my lane, my favorite pillar. And this is the world, this is the pool I swim in, this is the world I live in, this is the funnest part for me. And it's from the whole spectrum. So whether you're just beginning a spiritual journey or you've been swimming in this deep end for a long time, Seed of the Soul is a great book to read for beginners. Like, what is a soul? What, like, the basic questions that we might ask. And then if you're of a Christian background and you want to understand the metaphysics of it, where you have a little bit of science, What We Talk About When We Talk About God is a fantastic book. I just recently finished that on my Instagram and Facebook with quotes. Fantastic book. And then if you want to get deep, 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 deep in the waters on the PhD level, read Dolores Cannon's Convoluted Universe. It will take you to worlds you did not understand or didn't even think existed. So I want to touch on unmeasurable parts of the body, things that we can't see. We can't really measure them with modern science. Meridians, chakras, frequencies, and the soul. Those are all parts of our body, and because we don't see them and we can't measure them, science has a hard time acknowledging them. But they are incredibly important. When I do quantum healing with people, very often there'll be a pause in the session, and I'll ask the body what's happening, and it'll say, oh, we're rotating the throat chakra. We're rotating the root chakra, or we're moving it. It may say move, and I'm like, moving it? Where are you moving it to? Oh, no, we're just rotating it to get it moving again because it's not generating enough energy, or it's blocked, and we're going to remove the block. Like, wow, that made me really realize how powerful the invisible things are. The meridians with emotion code, meridians are very important to that healing, to the releasing process. Chakras, understanding frequencies in the body, and understanding that the soul is a part of our body. We just can't measure it. I want to touch on the difference between prayer and meditation. Prayer, for those that aren't familiar, prayer is when you send out, meditation is receiving in. So there are two different functions of the communication channel. And then the metaphysical, depending on how deep you want to go, we can go pretty darn deep. So if we can go to the next slide. So I want to give everybody a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about when I talk like 3D, 4D, 5D. And that's in American culture, we would call that dimensions, like the fourth dimension, fifth dimension. In other cultures, it's more densities. How deep can you get? So living in 3D, you have a beginning, you have an end. A lot of people might say heaven and hell, or there's like a starting point and an ending point. Those that operate in 4D, many can see past, present, future. People who operate in 5D, when I talk about 5D being that time is not linear and time does not exist, it's not that there is no time, it's that all time is present at the same moment.
Mm.
So time is irrelevant because it is all at the same time. And so we'll go to the next slide.
Okay. Quick question though.
Yeah.
Give us an example of this in operation.
So 3D would be someone who is just, they're doing their thing. They don't think they impact the world in any way. They're just living life as, from a religious perspective. They just mean like, this is what God intended for me, and this is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
There's sort of this surrender piece to it. When you're in 4th density, you have some spiritual gift. Everyone has a spiritual gift, but we have free will to take it or not take it.
Mm.
Third density either does not have the awareness that they have a gift or does not want the gift. And you have the right to send it back. Sometimes there's consequences, sometimes there's not, and you just move on. 4th density would be your clairvoyance, your claircognizance, the clairsentience, the psychics would fall in there, the healers, Reiki healers, anyone that's using some 6th sense ability to function and make the world a better place in their way.
Okay, so you have the ability to influence in 4D. In 3D, you're just moving through life and experiencing things passively almost.
You don't think that either you think that you're going to go to heaven at the end of the story and that there's nothing more to the story, sort of like the Cliff Notes version of life, where 4th density is like, I have the ability to help in some way, and I'm going to help the people in my space.
Okay.
The people who operate in 5th density understand that the actions they take impact the world.
Mm.
So when we look at like famous people, like for instance, Oprah, where it's, I'm worrying about girls in Africa, I'm worrying about paying for student education so that the mind over in the Midwest that has the capability of in the future becoming the one who solves some cure for a disease, finds the cure for a disease, that person has the opportunity to get that degree so that they can fulfill their mission in their life, in this lifetime. So 5th density people see that there's a wider range of impact on their actions. And the deeper in 5th density, you tend to find that that eating habits change. Those folks want to always be in the higher vibration words: joy, love, peace, enlightenment. Like those words vibrate higher, and they flow differently. And 3rd density people don't see that. They might go to like their church and work, or they might go to a nonprofit and do their volunteering, but it's not with depth. Where 4th density people understand that the ripple effect over generations, and 5th density understands this affects the planet.
Wow. So it's a matter of intention and claiming your ability to influence, and then creating an intention to do that, living in a higher vibration. That's wow. These are things I've heard before, but it's so easy to forget them as you get involved in life, and then you begin to spiral downward, and it's like, how do you turn that around? That's how do you stay in higher vibration?
Honor yourself. If you get charged by going to a mountain, go to the mountain. If you get charged by hugging people, which, fun fact, right? Hugging people 20 seconds or longer produces oxytocin, very
Mm,
healing for other people. If you have the gift of hugging with energy, hug more people with energy. Like, that is impacting more people generationally.
mm, mm. Okay. Thank you.
That's good. So here's a little analogy using water. Gary Zukav uses an analogy about how a cup of water is the ocean. It is not all of the ocean. It is a representation of the ocean, but a cup of water from the ocean is the ocean. And so you may not have dolphins and sharks and fish swimming in your cup of water, but that water molecularly is the ocean.
Mhm.
But the ocean is so much more than that. So I use water to give examples of how deep you can go. You can go, okay, I'm third density. I'm going to put my feet in the water. I'm going to listen to a webinar like this, or I might go to have a Reiki session somewhere, or a sacrocranial therapy session somewhere, and that's my limit. Or fourth density says, I want to learn how to do this to help more people. And then fifth density says, yes, I'm going to be the Indiana Jones of metaphysics and go retrieve all the lost knowledge I can in my lifetime.
Mm.
So I will work with people who are on a level 1, and I will work with people who are level 10. However deep people want to go is where we'll go.
Okay. Wow.
So here's a picture, and if we can imagine these little people at the bottom, this is my highlighting skills of artistic work. The
Yeah.
little people are at the bottom, and you see their little heads. You can see like where the 3D is, it's a head. It's supposed to be a head. So now imagine that the physical part from the head down is what we physically see in our humans, our population of species. But there's really this giant balloon above them that is our soul, that is the higher self, that is all that is. Biblically, if we were talking, this would be the I am. So this balloon, it exists, and it's whether we choose to unveil it or not. Do we want to be at third density and live life happily? Do we want to pick up our spiritual gifts and own them? Fourth density. Do we want to impact all the space? So if you see the arrow, if you go up to fifth density, when you learn to go up in fifth density with yourself, you are going up and out like a T. So how I connect with subconscious is not that I'm stealing something from someone else, is I'm just simply going up to the top of my belief system, and it so happens to be already connected to everyone else's in my proximity. So we look at studies of how animals can communicate with each other telepathically, how trees can communicate with each other. This is very metaphysical, but science is supporting it. Humans have the same capacity. We just don't know how to. So if we go up and out, you'll hear me talk. A common phrase I use is zoom up and out. Zoom up and out to see the bigger picture is that the bigger picture is all encompassing. So how can someone with fifth density ability help someone across the globe on the other side of the country, on the other side of the world rather? It's because we're just simply going up and we're traveling that invisible pathway through people to the other side of the world. All that is already there. We have just forgotten how to use it.
Wow. It's like a whole new frontier.
How deep do you want to go with me?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So let's go to the next slide. So this here, and this is a picture with me with Marianne, and I highlighted these specific lines in her quote from her book. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And this is a line that I give my clients very often. Your playing small does not serve the world.
Mm.
As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So in not acknowledging a spiritual gift you may have, you are denying somebody else the receipt of that gift.
Mm.
And when we understand that we are all responsible for each other's welfare, right? Almost every religion, take care of your neighbor. Almost every religion at the core level talks about being there for each other. And this is really when we put old rules aside, we realize how much we need to rely on each other for survival, really. But we cannot serve each other if we are not honoring our own gifts. And then we have our last slide.
Very good. And in the replay video and your blog page after the webinar, I'll put your notes on there, and I'll have links on these social media so that you can just click on it and go immediately there.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions?
Wow. Okay, let's open it up for questions, and then I'd still like to do that, what's on your wish list exercise with everyone. And as we do that, then think in terms of 3D, 4D, and 5D, beyond thinking in terms of your wish and your intention. But go ahead, let's first open it up for questions. And I can say, Annie, that I remember the first time I met you, and I've got to say it was at a networking event,
Yep.
social register event, and I had a mixed feeling when I first met you. One of the feelings was that, wow, she's like all over the place, and she's talking a whole different language, and I just don't understand this woman. And then it just got, you grow on a person, and it's like a cloud began to dissipate, and I feel like I'm looking into a window that opens up into more and more awareness, and that's the experience. What you have shared today is such a small version of what's available. It's almost like the tip of the iceberg, and definitely these things, they're not the language we live in.
No, or that we're taught to live in. We're taught quite the opposite.
Yeah, and so it's very difficult to actually, if you imagine things in your life that are so different than what you're used to. And it could be another language, it could be another culture. At first, there's just confusion.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if it's a matter of belief, I think, if we believe that the value is there and that something exists, then we can begin to live into it. So anyway, okay. So
I think the biggest thing is you have to trust yourself.
That's huge.
Yes, you have to trust yourself and go with your intuition. We have our intuition. Sometimes we want that reinforcement, but everything the universe does provide for us, we have to trust it. But then we have the ego mind coming in, and we resist that. And as things change and shift in our world, which they are now at a very rapid rate, we see this happening, where there's a lot of that resistance going on between 3D, 4D, and then people trying to experience the 5D.
Yes. And it's like who is this, Annie?
Aiden is heading off to his dad's house.
Okay. Oh, okay. Do you need to say goodbye to him?
No, he's good. That's a
Okay.
great point, Denise, is that very often our mind says, don't trust that. And our soul's like, yes, please go this direction.
Well, that's the ego. The ego is keeping us safe. It's
Yep.
keeping us in the box. You
In
know,
the box.
like
Yeah.
what we are trained to do in 3D is to stay in the box. When we're uncomfortable and we say, you know what, I got to get out of this box.
Yeah.
Then everything starts. All the chaos, the messiness, everything that you talked about. It like opens it all up, and it's like, whoa. And there's no time limit on it. Everyone's journey is different, and you have to honor it, trust it. And I really appreciate meeting you. When I first met you, I said, I have to hook up with this lady, and we did.
We did.
And I think that also happens on a cultural level, that that a culture can be moving forward in some way. And it seems that as a culture moves forward, the forces to pull that culture back to where it's been become more evident and stronger. And it's like it's a battle.
It really comes down to honoring who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Honor who you are and don't let anyone else's rules or old beliefs get in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example. I was in a relationship. We just weren't great together. Our marriage wasn't great together. Fine separately, but together we were not meshing anymore. And as soon as I asked for the divorce, it was like all these wishes sat in a queue, and they're like, finally we can start releasing. And sure enough, boom, 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 boom. All these blessings came in, and they were things I had asked for 8 years ago. And they just sat because I was so busy denying who I was that they weren't going to reward me for not honoring them.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I surrendered, and it took falling on my knees, literally, figuratively, physically, knee damage, that's when I was like, God, take this. I cannot take any more. This is it. This is my breaking point. My knees were broken. My spirit was broken. My heart was broken. Everything was broken. And I'm like, take it. Like, take the wheel. And it was like, goodness, Annie, did it take you that long? Did it need to take that long for you to realize we were here the whole time? And it was like within days, things started happening.
Well, let's go ahead now. Let's go ahead and each share some goal, intention that we would like to manifest in our life, and let's language that, and Annie, work with us.
Okay.
So who would like to go first? Gus.
All right. So as you guys know, I own a small business, and we've been operating for 2 years. It's been challenging for that time in terms of growing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would like to manifest is a successful business. And by successful, I mean that we are able to impact and provide this service to everyone who wants it in Las Vegas.
There's some block midway on your back. What is that?
I don't know.
As you were talking, it was getting tighter on my back. So there's something emotionally or mentally blocking that success. And I know that's a generic, very, very cryptic answer. But the next time you and I are together, I want to do something and clear what's on your back.
Okay.
Okay. And from what I've heard, in law of attraction thinking also, I would say there's some languaging issues too, where you're saying, I would like to grow this business. I would like this to happen. And as you say that, what you're also saying is it's not there now. And so maybe another way to language that would be, I have a very successful business, and my business is growing and it's influencing health throughout the greater Las Vegas area. And to word it in terms of it already being manifest. Just a thought.
And that could quite be it. I do believe, words are containers for emotions, right? And how Annie was able to pick up on some blockage, and you, David, as well, that could be the case.
But if we notice, Gus, when you were speaking, your subconscious already knew there was something that was preventing the movement forward by the choice of words you used. So now it's, let's go back and find out, let's go back on that journey, rewind a little bit and find out what that is.
Yeah, because I do believe in the power of the mind. So I've been working on manifesting the success, visualizing the outcome that I desire, right? But there's something that is challenging me getting from point A to point B. And it's not obvious to me.
I'll give an example, and this is not your situation, but there was a woman who I was working with, wanted to be very successful in her business. But in identifying that block on success by the choice of words she used, it was identified that she couldn't because it would destroy her sister and her brother, the relationship with her sister and her brother. That by being successful, they would be envious and she would lose the bond with them, and they were there for her when she went through her trauma at a young age, right? We don't think about this, but how something subtle as, I don't want to ruin the relationship with my brother and my sister, therefore I cannot get my company to the $10 million point. And then once she was aware of it and how somewhat irrational that is, she could then rewrite the story, but she had to identify what that block was.
Okay.
So,
anyone else? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Would someone else like to bring up an intention, and let's focus on that?
So Annie, I know I've mentioned this to you before, but I'd really like to work globally. And I have worked globally, but I would like to work globally. I would just like to impact people globally frequently.
yeah.
Often. Did you catch that?
And you will.
And I will.
Yeah.
I will do that.
You just started honoring that. So it's not like you go to the recycle place, you put the bottle in, you get the 5 cent the credit, right? It's not an instant throw your coins in the machine, get your voucher back. It's the order is in. Now it's working toward that order getting fulfilled. And you know the order is in. You know that's happening, and you know that that's part of your destiny. Now it's giving the universe time to bring that to you.
Okay, so what would be the language that I would use that you would suggest that I use daily, frequently?
Do you need to do it daily, or is it just honoring the fact that you put the order in?
Probably honoring the fact that I put the order in.
It's just a true statement. The honor's in. It'll get delivered when it gets delivered. Not to say that you don't do the work toward that goal.
Right.
You have to still walk toward wherever the pickup point is, but you recognize that that's part of your legacy. You know that's part of your journey, and you know that's going to happen.
Right. I've known that for coming up 2 years.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think sometimes also it's a matter of vision.
Yeah.
And the ability to see what is already manifest. Because I've had the experience of something being right in front of me, the answer being right in front of me, and I miss it because I don't think it's there. So,
Or that what's in front of you is it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. In Loya's case, Loya knows.
Uh-huh.
That's unwavering. The thing that she doesn't know is the when. And we can't predict when. Like I emphasize frequently that I'm not a psychic, because all I see are opportunities and possibilities. We always have free will to turn left, right, or go straight. We don't know what planes are in front of us in that landing pattern that have to land first. So yes, this is happening in our world. This is going to happen in our timeline. We can't predict when, because there are too many factors in front of us on other people doing their part
Mm-hmm.
before our plane can land.
How about double Denise? Do either of you have a intention you'd like to manifest?
My intent, and been working on it for a long time, is to get out of mainstream medicine and go into the healing that I want to do. So that's what I'm working towards right now, with working with Holly and Loya. We're going to be working together, so that's where it's going to be at.
And what would that look like?
Oh, what it would look like? Less stress. It would really look like putting together what I want to do with healing from an energetic point of view, and doing the two things that I enjoy the most, and that's doing the yoga and doing the energy healing, to bring together and actually helping the whole person.
Any wisdom?
Oh yeah. You just happen to have this professional medical background on the part that gets worn out the most on our journey.
What do you mean by that, Annie?
Well, imagine any of us walking 20 miles on a ruck march. What part of our body is going to ache the most or blister the quickest?
The feet, yeah.
Right? And here we are talking about spiritual journeys and wellness journeys and health and wellness. That here we have someone that's an expert on that part of the body. I don't think that's a coincidence at all.
Well, yeah, why do, like we talked about before with the younger children, why do they, their feet hurt, and we really can't figure out why, or people go through lives with, the pain. It's like, well, where's it coming from?
Right.
It could be with the old souls, yeah.
The old souls that have walked the earth many times.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got like 8, 10, 12, 15, 20-year-olds that have feet problems that a 90-year-old should have.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Denise. And Denise Thomas, do you have anything you'd like to share, an intention?
I just wish Dr. Denise was still practicing, because I have a foot problem. I have a neuroma in my foot, and I can't stand the untreated. I'm trying essential oils right now. So anyway, I wish I had Dr. Denise to go to for my foot.
Which foot? Which foot is it?
My
Is it
right
both of them?
foot. No, just one.
The right foot.
Uh-huh.
So what is your block moving forward?
What do you mean?
Well,
Why don't I pick another doctor?
no. In the metaphysical world, which side of our body also tells us whether it's past or present or past.
I don't know.
So the right side is a resistance in moving forward. So what is that resistance?
Well, it's probably getting my new business off the ground. I just realized that I saw on GoDaddy, I've had the domain name since 2007. Here it is. 12 years later. But I'm
So-
getting closer.
I would be interested to follow this, Denise, and see if the foot subsides as you start honoring what you're supposed to be doing.
You probably will. In fact, my name was drawn at the last meet and eat to be a speaker on the 12th, and I'm developing a brochure to talk about how this idea came about as a handout for my speech.
Yep. And think bigger, because you have something, it has a great concept, but there's more to it that you haven't pieced together yet.
I know, there's a lot. Like pricing.
Pricing, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, and so that's going down into her right foot.
Mhm.
Wow, that's really interesting.
My whole right side has been a mess for a couple of years now.
Oh wow.
And you own it.
And had 3 fractures, 2 in my arm, 1 in my kneecap. Now it's my foot.
You better establish that business quick.
Arthritis in my right thumb.
That's funny, David.
Right? Your future depends on it.
Annie, I'd just like to add that when I started my company a couple months into it, my ankles started hurting for the first time in my life, and I had no clue why. There was no reason, there was no injury, there was nothing, but they were hurting so bad every day, and I couldn't figure it out. And I had someone that I know from a Facebook site who offered to do long distance Reiki healing on me. She knew nothing about anything, and I hadn't told anybody about my ankles and how much they hurt. But she told me that when she was doing the Reiki healing, that I had stuck energy in my ankles, and that the reason that she felt that is because of the fact that I'm not moving forward for some reason. And she wasn't an actual friend. She was more of an acquaintance. She knew absolutely zero about me.
Yeah.
And so I just want to validate that statement about the ankles, the knees, anything that moves is connected with moving. When you are basically holding yourself back, it's just for me anyways, I can tell you, yeah, my ankles hurt for like 6 months for no reason.
Yep. You weren't being true to you at the time.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Annie, and thank everyone for your just openness and vulnerability here in bringing up your intentions. So at this point, then I encourage people to give Annie a call. Do you have any kind of a consultation that you do with people, Annie?
I do coaching and I do the QHHT. I'll know in the first 5 minutes of a phone call when they go to set an appointment if they're a good match or not.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, thank you so much. And that concludes our webinar for today. I'd just like to say coming up next week, real quick, is we go to health education, and believe it or not, it is me.
Yay!
Yes, staying power, the art of listening to your body. I've been a distance runner for a long time. I do lots of runs up in the mountains, 7 to 12 hours on a Saturday. I've been doing that week after week, and a couple weeks ago, I developed an injury. Now I'm almost afraid to say it was on my left knee. So Annie might have something to say about that. However, I can say by systematically applying an approach to this injury, and this is an injury I've had early on in my life, in my 20s and 30s. It's knocked me out of marathons, and it's just been like hang on and never leave. But I can say when it came up a few weeks ago, I applied a systematic approach and I killed the injury. It is gone. And last week I did another one of my 10-hour runs climbing a new mountain. And I'm going to share next week how I systematically killed a repetitive motion injury. And if you apply what I have to share and you add what Annie has to share, it's like you'll live on a higher plane the rest of your life. So, okay. So that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you everyone for attending. I've got to say overall that what you shared, Annie, really gave me hope. And the reason it gave me hope is that I have a power. You kind of unearthed or reminded me of the power that I have to actualize some small and very large things that have been in my thinking and awareness. And it's like I believe some of these things are things that I was brought into this earth to do and to be. And it's like I feel like I've forgotten. I've allowed myself to slip down into 3D. and it just helps to know that there's different way to language things, and there's a different way to see reality and to experience reality. And to the extent that I step into that, there are some amazing things that I believe I'm going to be able to do. And there are things that are transformational for people that will make the world better. And so, I feel like I'm just holding back on those things and not doing the very things that I was brought here to accomplish. And so I hope that I can continue on. I just need a regular practice every day, I guess, to wake up and to acknowledge those realities and live into them. So.
And not to throw guilt, not shame, because that's low. Guilt's a little bit higher. There are people who need what you have, and you're denying them that right to have it and receive it as a gift by not honoring that in yourself.
I really believe that. And, it's true of everybody. Each one of us can be a lot more than we are actually right now a lot more than we see ourselves to be. And to step into our true identity and calling, I think, is something that each of us could do. But I need to think in terms, the only one I can lead is myself, as your title says, leading yourself on your personal health journey. But I have a feeling that I'm not alone.
No, I think pretty much everybody here, all of us have something very important that shines for others in our own very unique way.